I'm gonna. Good evening. Welcome to the closed session portion of the City Council meeting. I am calling this meeting to order. The time is 5 p.m. Madam Clerk, will you please take roll call?
Councilmember Gama. Here. Councilmember Hernandez.
Oh, my light just lost their power. My power's out on my. We're good.
Oh, we're back.
I'm here still.
Here.
Councilmember Martinez.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem McQueen Lejeune.
Here.
And Mayor Perez.
Here. We will now hear public comments. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. Madam Clerk, does anyone have any public comment tonight?
No public comments for closed session.
Thank you. Mr. City Attorney, please read the closed session items into the record.
Absolutely, Mayor Perez. We have 2 items on closed session tonight. The first one is conference regarding public employee performance evaluation for the city attorney pursuant to Government Code Section 54957, Subdivision B1. The second item is conference with legal counsel regarding existing litigation. That case and Ventura County Superior Court number is spelled out in the agenda.
Thank you. Do any council members have any conflicts of interest to disclose for the listed closed session items on the agenda? Hearing none, we will recess to closed session. The time is 5:01 p.m. Good evening. Welcome to the City Council regular meeting. I'm calling this meeting to order. The time is now 6:32. Please stand and join me for the flag salute. Madam Clerk, will you please take roll call?
Councilmember Gama,
Here.
Councilmember Hernandez. Here. Councilmember Martinez,
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem McQueen LaJaunt,
Here.
and Mayor Perez.
Here. Our inspiration tonight will be given by Councilmember Hernandez.
Thank you, Mayor Perez. I just wanted to share with all of you inspirational moment I had yesterday, and that was the attending the free concert at the Ocean View Pavilion. It was Ventura County Orchestra Group, I believe was the correct name. It was funded through the Ventura County Office of Education, Office of Continuing Education. And I couldn't believe the number of people who turned out for it, and it was mostly seniors. And the beautiful thing about it, which to me was so inspirational, was the fact that George did this concert for our community for free. George does a lot of things for free for our senior community. So this is all for the seniors. I want to extend a huge thanks out to George for what he does for our seniors, and for all of you to remember our senior community in our decisions that we make. And when you see them out in the street, make sure you make them feel welcomed as a member of our community. Thank you.
Thank you, and well deserved. We'll now move on to closed session report. Mr. City Attorney, please provide the closed session report.
Thank you, Mayor Perez. There is no legally reportable action taking place in closed session. However, I did want to comment on the public employee performance evaluation for the city attorney. And while the rest of the council knows and whatnot, I have tendered my resignation to the law firm of Green D. Bortnowski. And I will no longer be serving as city attorney to this wonderful city. It's been an honor, it's been a privilege, but I have another opportunity that I am very eager to embark on, and part of the reason for the performance evaluation is Andre D. Bortnowski and Joan Smythe of the law firm are seated right down here, and they will be taking over providing legal services to the city. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Kevin, and we appreciate your service to the city, and we wish you well in your next endeavor. We will now hear public comments not pertaining to items on the agenda. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. This process will be the same for comments pertaining to each agenda item. Madam Clerk, do we have any public comments?
May we address the conflict of interest?
Oh, yes,
that
yes,
arose?
yes. Do any council have any conflicts of interest to disclose for any item?
I do. In regards to the second item on closed session, I live probably 992 feet away from the Surfside Motel, and I need to be more than 1,000 feet away to avoid any perceived or
Potential.
property valuation gain with whatever transpires in that litigation. So I recused myself.
Anything further? Good. All right. Any public comments, Madam Clerk?
Yes, we have public comments. We'll be starting with Becky Bruning.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, Council, staff, and audience. I'm here representing Rokapi Outdoors. And on Sunday, the 27th, will be our Family Fish Day at the end of the pier from 8 to 11. You need more information, go to our website, rogupioutdoors.org. And I want to remind everybody that May 19th is our dinner, our surf and turf dinner. And I do have tickets with me if you're interested. They are going fast, so I would get them if you want them. Thank you.
Timothy Fergal.
Good evening, Mayor Perez, Mayor Pro Tem McQueen LeJohn, esteemed council members, city staff. I'm providing an update on the Ray Pruder Library in Port Hueneme. We continue to remain closed because of the damage that we sustained during the Christmas storms. We anticipate reopening in July. However, there have been some delays that are being caused, working through the insurance company and the insurance claim process. So once the construction starts, it should be a 3 to 4 month project. We are hopeful that we can be starting before the end of the month. So again, our anticipated reopening will be in July, and our Friends of the Library will be working to have a reopening celebration. So stay tuned for more information about that. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your support.
Thank you. Tom King. Mr. King has provided some documents that I'll provide to you later. If any member of the public wishes to see such documents, you can please contact me.
Madam Mayor, council members, staff. I'm here basically to represent those that are opposed to a proposed monument over by the area of Surfside and Market Street. I've supplied 10 names so far. I have a total of 40, but that's all that I really wish to present tonight. But the purpose of the petition is to oppose the proposed site location of the Bard Monument at Hueneme Wharf and Flag Plaza located at Surfside Drive and Market Street, and to urge the Port Hueneme City Council to vote no to this as the location site. The Port commissioned the 11-foot, 1,000-pound monument of Richard Bard. The Port wants the monument at that plaza. Total respect to the Bard family, certainly to the Port and what they do for our community, but there's a strong, I'll say, surge of support for those that are opposed to the placement of this monument. I also included in the handout, I don't know if you have it, but the very last page of the presentation that was made on March 18th to the City Council is the draft of the survey that the Port Oxnard Harbor District wanted to present. It's only a draft, but they've indicated that the name of the location that I'm talking about is Bard's Wharf and Flag Plaza. I don't believe the city renamed that area. I was going to name the 10 people that have signed this particular petition, so I'd like to do that and then yield. Myself, Tom King, Jessica Lamb, Tom Shannon, Gary Johnson, Ty Melton, John Iweta, Elaine Smith, Randall Adams, Steve Boehm, and Cheryl McMichael. I've indicated in a transcript of those names also the preferred location site. And I provided the contact information with our clerk.
Thank you.
We have one last public comment, which was written. Dear.
Can I just quickly
Oh, sure.
respond? Sorry. So just a brief response. So tomorrow we have a joint meeting with the City Council and the Port Committee, and we are expecting to get an update on that. And so there will be an update provided at that time.
Dear Port Hueneme.
Could we provide the time and location of that meeting?
It is tomorrow, Tuesday, April 16th at 3:30 p.m. here in the council chamber. Okay. Dear Port Hueneme City Council, my name is Jasmine Duran, and I am the Advocacy and Community Impact Coordinator for Autism Society, Ventura County's Advocacy Committee. Thank you for this proclamation that acknowledges Fair Housing Month. At Autism Society, Ventura County, we're emphasizing the importance of fairness, inclusion, and justice in housing. It's vital to remember that discussions on diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI, often miss a crucial group, people with disabilities. Disabilities don't shield anyone from poverty. In fact, many people with disabilities live in abject poverty and never graduate out of poverty. Not everyone fits into the group home setting that our local regional center offers, yet this is the most common option and offer for people with developmental disabilities in Ventura County. With at least 10,000 individuals with developmental disabilities in Ventura County, we need to ask, how well are we housing them? What programs are there? Who is their advocate when housing is discussed? Are their needs being considered? Are they being met? Are their needs being planned for? It's time to focus on universal design and reserved housing set aside for people with developmental disabilities. While Port Hueneme has been a champion for housing, it's important for our planning departments to note that being accessible means more than just accommodating wheelchairs or physical access. It's about making spaces comfortable and usable for everyone, or are universally designed. We hope to work together for a future where everyone in our community has a place they can proudly call home, not just this month, but all year round. Thank you for your time and attention. Jasmine Duran. That concludes public comment.
Thank you. And we will now move on to the conflict of interest in Levine Act disclosures for the agenda. Do any council members have any conflicts of interest to disclose for anything on the agenda? Seeing none, we will move on to presentations. Our first presentation is the Fair Housing Month Proclamation. I'd like to call up DEI Committee Vice Chair Kathy Sullivan and Director of Government Affairs Rob Leatherwood of the Ventura County Coastal Association of Realtors to accept a proclamation in honor of Fair Housing Month. While they are making their way up, I will read the proclamation, unless somebody else wants to. Fair Housing Month 2024. Whereas the Fair Housing Act, enacted on April 11th, 1968, enshrined into federal law the goal of eliminating racial segregation and ending housing discrimination in the United States. And whereas the Fair Housing Act prohibits discrimination in housing based on race, color, religion, sex, familial status, national origin, and disability, and commits recipients of federal funding to affirmatively further fair housing in their communities. And whereas the Ventura County Coastal Association of Realtors and the Real Estate Fraud Advisory Team are committed to the highlighting Fair Housing Act by continuing to address discrimination in our community by supporting programs that will educate the public about the right to equal housing opportunities, and by continuing partnership efforts with other organizations to help assure every one of their rights to fair housing. And whereas the City of Port Hueneme is committed to the mission and intent of Congress to provide fair and equal housing opportunities. And whereas our social fabric, the economy, health, and environment are strengthened in diverse, inclusive communities. And whereas more than 50 years after the passage of the Fair Housing Act, discrimination persists and many communities remain segregated. And whereas the acts of housing discrimination and barriers to equal housing opportunity are repugnant to a common sense of decency and fairness. And whereas the National Association of Realtors Code of Ethics commits all realtors to provide equal professional services without discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, familial status, handicap, sexual orientation, gender identity, or national origin. Now, therefore, the City Council of the City of Port Hueneme, California, does hereby proclaim April 2024 as Fair Housing Month and begins a year-long commemoration of the Fair Housing Act in the City of Port Hueneme, and urges all citizens to wholeheartedly recognize this celebration throughout the year.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you, Mayor Perez. Thank you, esteemed council members. Thank you, neighbors. My name is Kathy Sullivan. I'm a local licensed real estate agent. I'm also a Port Hueneme resident. Thank you for allowing us a few moments to speak. Excuse me for not being able to remember everything. I'm here this evening as the 2024 DEI Committee Vice Chair. I'm representing over 2,000 members of the Ventura County Coastal Association of Realtors. For those who may not know, DEI stands for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. This April marks the 56th anniversary of the Fair Housing Act, Title VIII of the Civil Rights Act of 1968, and Fair Housing Month across the country. As realtors, we are committed to highlighting the Fair Housing Act by continuing to address discrimination in our community, by supporting programs that will educate the public about the right to equal housing opportunities, and by planning partnership efforts with other organizations to help ensure that everyone has access to fair housing. This brings me to why I'm before you this evening. While the process of finding and buying a home has certainly changed over the last several decades, and generally for the better, more than 50 years after the passage of the Fair Housing Act, discrimination persists and many communities do remain segregated. We appreciate this proclamation by the City Council recognizing April as National Fair Housing Month, and hope you will join us for a year-long commemoration of the Fair Housing Act in Port Hueneme and across Ventura County. We urge all citizens to wholeheartedly recognize this celebration throughout the year. Thank you so much for your time, Council, Mayor, and my neighbors. Have a great evening.
Thank you. Before we move on, I'm going to get an agenda approval. May I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Madam Clerk?
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Moving on to the second presentation is the Arbor Day Proclamation. I'm going to turn this over to, are you doing
Me, yeah.
Okay, I'm turning it over to
Thank
you.
To read it.
Yeah, and so I get the privilege of introducing Arbor Day and the proclamation honoring Arbor Day this year. Just a little bit of background, because people probably noticed we do the Arbor Day proclamation in honor of Arbor Day each year, is that Port Hueneme is a Tree City, USA, which is something that we take pride in. And some people don't know all of what that entails, but being a Tree City, USA city, there's a couple of requirements, and one is each year we are have to basically reaffirm our commitment to Arbor Day by recognizing it in a public meeting. And so this helps us actually meet our requirement of continuing to be a Tree City, USA. There's a couple other requirements, things like we have to do a certain amount of tree maintenance each year, and we have to have an ordinance to manage the trees and things like that. So we do all of those things all year round, but each year we have one day where we honor Arbor Day. And so today is the day that we are introducing our proclamation to celebrate Arbor Day, which will be Thursday, April 18th. We're actually holding an event out front of City Hall on Thursday the 18th at 10 a.m. We're inviting everybody to come out. If you want to help us actually plant a tree, we're going to have a couple trees actually ready to plant, so you can come help us plant a tree and kind of help reaffirm our status as a Tree City, USA. We're going to be planting on that day a total of 18 trees, mostly California sycamore trees. Almost all of them are California sycamore trees, with the exception of in Hueneme Bay in one of the areas we're going to plant 2 pine trees. So we'll be out planting trees that week, and we invite everybody to come out on the 18th at 10 a.m. to help us do that. And so with that, we have a proclamation honoring Arbor Day in our city. I will read it quickly. So, whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees, and the holiday called Arbor Day was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska. And whereas Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world, and whereas trees can reduce wind and water erosion of our precious topsoil, lower our heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife. And trees are a renewable resource, giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products. And whereas trees in our city increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community. and trees, wherever they are planted, are a source of joy and spiritual renewal. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the City Council of Port Hueneme hereby proclaims the third Thursday in April, April 18th, as Arbor Day in the City of Port Hueneme, and all citizens are urged to celebrate Arbor Day and to support efforts to protect our trees and woodlands. We urge all citizens to plant and care for trees to gladden the heart and promote the well-being of this and future generations. And thank you.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. I do have a question. Is that time set in stone? As you are aware,
As I was just reading it, I realized we are opening our grocery store that day
and
too.
most of us will be at the ribbon cutting
So,
event.
so stay tuned. We'll post after this meeting a new time for that.
Thank
We
you.
should be able to adjust that. So.
Did you have something to say?
Yes, there's 2 trees here at City Hall that I am particularly proud of, and they're 2 coastal oak trees, and they're out front, and they're in honor of 2 former mayors, Douglas Breeze and Ellis Green. And because I'm weird, I'd love to watch these trees because they're slow growing and they're really doing well. So take notice of the 2 coastal oaks out front and watch them slowly grow. And they're in, like I said, they're in honor of 2 former mayors, Douglas Breeze and Ellis Green.
And I thank you for explaining that. I think we had a conversation at one time where nobody understood how we became a tree city, and you're the first person to actually explain what that meant. All right. So moving on, we are going to have a presentation on the Sister City presentation by Committee Representative Bobby Martinez.
All right, can everyone hear me? All right, good evening, council, mayor, mayor pro tem, city staff, and members of the public. It's good for me to be out here and give you guys another presentation. As you may remember, this isn't my first presentation talking about the Sister City program here in our city. Back in 2021, I was given the task of bringing a sister city to our city, our lovely city of Port Hueneme. First year, I think I pretty much spent the time learning what Sister Cities was, and then the second year, figuring out, like, picking the city, and then by the third year, it turns out I was the mayor, and then the mayor is the person that goes to the city and meets with the other mayor from the other city, and they agree on creating the Sister City committee. So I want to, in this presentation, I want to go ahead and just show you some of the pictures that I took from our visitation in last November for Dia de los Muertos celebration. And so before I begin, I just want to show you guys this picture. So if you guys see, this is something that I created, but it's a blending of both cities. I don't know if you can see it, but Hueneme Beach is on there, and then you can also see Puerto Vallarta too. But it's a blending of both pictures, and then you can also see our logo. And all of this is on our website, which the domain is pending, but we do have a Facebook group, and then we also have an Instagram. So here goes. So one of the first things that you'll notice about Puerto Vallarta which is our sister city, is that there's a lot of art. And so one of these days I would like to see similar letters like these in our city, but maybe say Port Hueneme. They do have a port. Puerto means port in Spanish. So they're basically Port Vallarta, like if you think about it. They also have a nice beach. It's a little bit different than our beach. They have a harbor. They have a walkway, which is really nice. So just one of the first things that I liked about the trips is that it gives us ideas on what we can bring back from the other cities. And they're big on tourism. We're not, but I think we can learn a little bit from them, even though I don't think we want to become like fully touristy city, but we can definitely learn from our sister city. They have a lot of art on the beach. And so these are some interesting chairs. I think they have them all throughout the major cities in Mexico, but people basically go and sit down and take pictures on these chairs. I think they're like bronze. This one's really interesting too. People can go up and take photos. I don't know if that's a liability though, but but it was fun. And just lots of statues throughout the whole, it's called, it'll come back to me, but it's called El Malecón. So when you go to the beach, like by the edge, this is called El Malecón, and it's a whole walkway that people like to do. So they go up and down the Malecón. So again, lots of art throughout the city. I thought it was really nice. We did go for Dia de los Muertos. So it's a celebration that takes place in Mexico where they honor the people that have passed on in their lives. And one of the other things that they do in terms of that celebration is they've been doing this for the last couple of years, but getting the world's biggest Catrina. This isn't the world's biggest Catrina, but this was the Puerto Vallarta Santa Barbara Committee's Catrina. So all these organizations also have their own Catrinas, and they do a little competition. But this is the big Catrina. And so they ended up celebrating having the world's largest Catrina in the entire world. So it was a really nice celebration. There was, honestly, thousands of people. You can't really see it in this picture, but the people inside the yellow tape, those are the sister city members from Santa Barbara. And then on the other side, it's all the tourists. They had a celebration. They had an Aztec dance. They had some musicians. They had a nice show for us. And I even got a chance to go up on stage. And I'm sitting to my right or your left. It's the Secretary of Tourism's, the State Secretary of Tourism of the state of Jalisco. And then to her right is the mayor of the city of Puerto Vallarta. And they call their mayors presidentes, so like the president of the city. So that's something that I also learned. This was at the cemetery. I kind of wanted to block off the first picture, the one in the background, because I don't know if everybody was okay with me taking pictures of them. It's like sensitive. There was people that were crying. There was people that were celebrating. A lot of people brought in musicians. There was flowers. So I didn't take too many pictures in this at the cemetery, but it was a learning experience. They also had a parade, which was really nice. So these are some of the people that came out on the parade, and so it was similar to our parade. Just so you guys can get an idea, it wasn't like a very huge parade, but it was a nice celebration. There was a lot of people, and the parade lasted a really, really long time. This was probably like my favorite picture. So a little girl like on a horse. I thought it was really cute. And then right after the parade, there was also a celebration that the committee had for the Santa Barbara and Port Hueneme members. And they had some competitions, some prizes. And so it kind of gave me some ideas of what we would do next when they come and visit us in our city. There was another celebration, totally separate day. So they party a lot. But they had different types of dancers from different regions of Mexico, which was nice. And they also had some singers. And then the people that wanted to take a photo took a picture at the end. That wasn't everybody that was there. There was a lot of people that didn't want to take a picture, which was fine. I'm somewhere in there in the back. But there was a lot of things that we did while we were out there. So it wasn't really a vacation. I know a lot of people consider it like a vacation, but Lisa Burns, she's the one that told me it's really a working vacation because there's a lot of stuff that you're doing throughout the entirety of the trip. And this is us meeting with the mayor and planning on some of the things that we can do in the future. So that was an honor for me to meet the mayor, because in Mexico it's a little bit different than here in the United States. Not that we're not special being on council, but over there they see it as a really, really prestigious title to be on council and to be the mayor of a city. And another thing that Santa Barbara celebrated was breakfast, where they were giving out the scholarships to some of the students. And so this is one of the students that received one of the scholarships. In Mexico, school is not free. And even though it might not be a lot to pay for school, like say $100 per year, some families might not be able to afford it. So one of the things that Santa Barbara does is they have these scholarships available for some of the students out in Mexico. So that's just one of the students. They also had a marathon at the time when I was there. So that's when I was like imagining a marathon here in our city. And thankfully we had our first ever 5K, which was super cool. So it was a really hot day, by the way. It was really, really hot. I also visited Biblioteca Los Mangos on behalf of our library from Tim Frugo, who's who's here, and so he gave me some stuff to take to the library. I met their librarian, and as you can see right there to the right, on the bottom right, it's some of the letters and some of the books that the students and our youth in our community gave to the community in Puerto Vallarta. I also met with the manager of the museum, their maritime museum. So we also have a maritime museum. So one of the goals about Sister City is trying to connect different businesses and organizations that might have similarities, and maybe you can learn from some of the good things that they're doing, and maybe you can also give them some ideas. So I thought this was cool. Now, I'm still working on our museum to wanna work with their museum, but because it's like a military museum, I guess it's a little bit more difficult. But I'm still on that. I think I get this question asked a lot. You know, what's the point of Sister Cities? Really, it's like what you want to make of it, and it's all about fostering relationships and growth. Sister Cities began because right after World War II, obviously you all know that it was a really bad situation in the whole entire world, and so President Eisenhower wanted to unite a lot of the communities and cities all throughout the world, so maybe it can promote peace and unity amongst all of us. So we did get a lot of time to spend with, people that from a different culture. So right there on the left is Dulce, and she hosted technically myself, Stephanie, Lisa Burns, and Scott Burns, who are there. They had 2 guest rooms, so I stayed with them for 2 nights before I went back to the beach. But she took us out and showed us around, which was nice. But ultimately, Puerto Vallarta was beautiful. There was a lot of art, and it was a wonderful experience. Our sister city is our nonprofit still hasn't been created, but we've been hosting meetings since October. So we're just waiting on the nonprofit in order for us to get going. And we do have members that want to move forward. And like I said, we do have a website and Instagram and Facebook, and we're excited to see what we can bring from the city of Puerto Vallarta over here. And I'm hoping it'd be like art and relationships, fostering relationships. So I think that'd be really nice. And maybe a little bit of tourism. I hope the public's okay with that. I know we like being a quiet city, but I think we would benefit a lot from that. Yeah, so if there's any questions, I'm all yours.
Council have any questions? Thank you, Councilmember Martinez, for your presentation.
Okay, hope you guys enjoyed it. And if you want to learn more, I actually posted a 26-minute video on my entire trip. I wasn't going to show you guys the video, but it's a 26-minute video it's on my own personal YouTube channel though. So
Thank you.
yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.
Mayor, could I quickly note, so we just set a time to not interfere with the grocery outlet grand opening, which is at 10 a.m. Currently. So our Arbor Day celebration will be 3 p.m. that day, so that people can come over after they tire themselves out at the grocery outlet. So.
Thank you. We will move on now to the consent calendar. We will now consider items on the consent calendar which will be enacted in one motion unless a council member has a request to remove an item for discussion. May I have a motion and a second?
Motion to approve the
Second.
consent calendar.
Thank you. Are there any items that any council member would like to remove for discussion? Hearing none. Madam Clerk?
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. We have no public hearings, so we'll move on to business items. The first business item is the Transaction and Use Tax Citizens Oversight Committee, or Measure U, annual report. Will staff please present the report?
Yes, and I think we actually have the Measure U Chair, David Scrivener, here to present as well. So I'll just introduce that as part of Measure U, when Measure U passed, and the City Council created a committee to oversee the Measure U fund, or Measure U funds. And as one of the tasks that was given to the committee at that time was to provide an annual report to the council detailing their review of Measure U and recommendations, et cetera. And to date, my understanding is we have never done that, and today is the first one, and so it marks some history And so I'm going to introduce the Measure U Committee, the Tax Citizens Oversight Committee, to give their first ever annual report. So.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, Council, staff. We have three of us here tonight. I'll do the presentation, but we can ask questions of all of us. This is Beth Williams. She's the vice chair. And this is Galen Vick, who's another member of the committee. I think there's a presentation you all have. I don't want to go through the whole thing. It's kind of lengthy, but the history is there. So I thought I'd just start off with a brief introduction of what this is all about, a brief history, and then we can talk about where we are now. So as you all know and have to deal with, we have a really small tax base in Port Hueneme, and we're trying to have a good police station, police department, and have quality of life issues here, and I think we've done a really good job of this, but there clearly wasn't enough money to face some of these obstacles. So in 2018, the council put a measure called Measure U on the ballot to basically charge a penny for every dollar of the citizens of Port Hueneme, called a transition tax. And something I didn't discover till later is it doesn't matter whether you spend your money in Oxnard, Camarillo, or Port Hueneme, you still pay the tax. Unless you go in there and give them some cash and don't tell you who you are, you're going to get taxed with it. So basically what happened was the council was unclear. Well, the rules are basically that it took, I think, a 2/3 majority in order to pass a tax that would go to a dedicated purpose, and it took a 51% to go, money that would go into the general fund. So the council was unclear whether they would have enough votes to do the former, and so Measure U basically goes into the general fund, and they made promises where the money would go, and created an oversight committee to review things and report back to the council. Basically, did you keep your word? Okay. As it turns out, it was highly popular. It would have passed at the higher level, and it received a lot of support. So in 2019, we started collecting the money, okay, and started running into some difficulty, bluntly, with some of the former staff members who refused to set up regular meetings, didn't give us any data. This got really frustrating. Many of the people dropped off the board. One of the difficulties is we can't talk to each other outside of a meeting with an agenda on it, and so we couldn't even talk with each other about this. By the time we got back on track again, I think I'm the only one who was left, and I didn't even know who was on the committee anymore. So long and short of it is, Tony Stewart became the interim manager. I asked him to set meetings and give us the data. He immediately did that, and we started back on track again. So I have to thank him for that. I think it was the beginning of good things at that point. Tony left. We got a new city manager. Things got even better. Okay, so what we asked for was an accounting, basically how much money came in, where did it go, and the answer was they didn't know. Okay, so we had to do a forensic accounting, and Lupe Acero did it, and spent quite a bit of time figuring out where the money all went. Okay, so to summarize, we have the data up until 2022, 23, 24, that we haven't received that data yet, and we have a budget for 24, 25. So coming up into that time, essentially had brought in about $3.5 million a year, $3 million a year. It varied a little bit. We had about $10.7 million that had been collected, and when we did the accounting, we figured out that $1.7 million had not been spent on anything that was remotely clear that we were mandated to look at. So we asked us to get that money in a separate account, and city manager went ahead and set it up in I think a reserve fund of some sort. I forget the name of it. But so we had the money set aside. And then the next thing that happened was we realized that the Bubbling Springs Park was underfunded because of, the time had passed and all the bids went up. And we authorized that money, we don't authorize it, we recommended that money be spent on Parks and Rec because that was one of the major things that money was supposed to be spent for. So Measure U, the money is supposed to be spent on public safety, which is fairly broad, okay? Essentially public works, again broad, and Parks and Rec. So to date, about half the money has gone to the police department, about a quarter of the money has gone to public works, and a quarter of money to Parks and Rec. That big chunk of $1.7 million brought us up to those numbers, if that makes sense. So we looked at all the where the money went. I think we came up with one questionable thing after all these years, which was some improvements were made to the public works, I don't know, room, whatever what we call it.
Room is that?
The break room, which seemed a little sketchy, but it was $8,000 out of all these millions. So that was the only thing I felt, or you felt, I think, that was even questionable. So we're here tonight to say you kept your word, okay? Now, we don't have, all we can do is to report our findings to you. We don't have anything, we have no authority to say where the money goes or whatever. We can simply say, did the city council do what they said they were going to do? And yes, you have. So at this point, we also made another transition with the new city manager to have some input on making recommendations about the future where money may go. Again, these are recommendations. It's up to you to decide to accept them or not. And I think for the 24-25 budget year, I guess that's, I think it goes from June to June or something like that, I forget. Essentially, the one thing we did want was to not spend all the money, okay? Most of the years we have, you kept money and kept it in the general fund, and we had a surplus. A couple of years it went over legitimate expenses, but we felt like who knows what's going to happen, probably be better to have a little bit of cushion. So that was one of the recommendations. I think we also talked about maybe recommending some sort of scholarships for kids who can't afford to be in the junior lifeguard program, which has been highly successful, and this is a good way to keep people from drowning going into the future. Once you learn how to deal with ocean currents, you're not going to drown unless you go to Silver Strand when it's 25 foot and try to go swimming. But hopefully you know not better. And the other thing was, it turns out there's an enormous amount of children who can't swim. That was unheard of when I was a kid. Everybody went swimming. You went to public stuff. Everybody swam in lakes and in pools. It's not the case anymore. So one of the things that we thought about was, putting something into helping kids learn how to swim. So those were the. Do you guys have any more that you thought about, or? Okay. So again, those are our recommendations. They're not binding. Then one last thing is the video surveillance systems at Miranda Park and at the pier apparently don't work. A lot of money was put into them. They've been very valuable tools at different points, and we thought maybe, again, that would be another thing that you could take a look at. And if we can get those up and running, it's going to be really helpful to us. So.
Thank you. Does any council member have any questions? Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Scribner, and members of the committee for your work and for your report tonight. I was looking through the staff report, and I was trying to capture your recommendations. I don't see them in writing. Were they not included?
So two big recommendations that the Measure U committee has made that were referred to. One was already implemented by the council. It went to council as part of the Bubbling Springs project, and that was the recommendation where the $1.7 million that hadn't been spent be used to fund the Bubbling Springs gap. So that was the first one mentioned. The second one is budget recommendations for next year's budget, which were the list of projects Mr. Scrivener mentioned at the end. Those will be coming to council as part of the budget process.
Okay, very good.
So-
Yeah, I just wrote down video surveillance, swim program,
Mhm.
scholarship, and I think I may have missed a few, so
Mhm.
good to know they're coming. Thank
Yep.
you again for your work.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Councilmember Martinez.
Yes, I don't have any questions. I just want to say thank you for the presentation. I've been looking forward to this presentation since I got on council. And I think this is something
We've been
that,
looking forward to try to give you one.
and I think the entire council have seen, they've known your value, and we want you to be successful. And I want to thank Tony Stewart and also our new city manager for giving you a place to hold your meetings and, you know, to do what you guys are here to do. You know, so thank you for your work.
Yes, thank you. You need to hold us accountable just as much as anyone else does, and that was the whole purpose of the committee, was to hold that fund accountable. And it's been a bit frustrating, to say the least, of not being able to hear what has been going on about that. So we are very glad to see it moving forward. So thank you. Any further?
Just want to reiterate what Councilmember Martinez said and Mayor Perez, is that the value of the committee is standing before us, and the report speaks for itself. And I look forward to you working through this next year and helping us do better.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes. Thank you so much for the report. You know, sometimes there's nothing like holding people accountable, and I really appreciate your committee being candid about the history, the process that you all had to go through. So I really appreciate that. And then based on your report, you have quarterly meetings that there'll be a drumbeat for that. So looking forward to.
That's what I think we're on track to do that now.
Okay,
yes.
great. Good to hear. Thank you so much.
Madam Clerk, are there any public comments regarding this item?
No public comments.
Thank you.
I guess in closing, I'd just like to say, in kind of opening up this can of worms, you hope you're not going to find any big problems, and the city council, through various, and not just you, but we've had other people on the council, has really done what they said they were going to do, and the promise to the voters was kept. So that's made me feel really good. I feel like this is an ethical process. You're doing a good job, and thank you.
Well, any news is good news, even if it's bad news, because then it gives us an opportunity to correct whatever mistake was made. So we appreciate that.
Thank you.
So the recommendation is to receive a presentation form from and file the report provided by the Transactions and Use Tax Citizens Oversight Committee. May I have a motion and a second?
Motion to approve?
Thank you. No
Second.
further discussion? Madam Clerk?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next presentation will be the Joint City Port Committee direction, including consideration of community benefit fund allocations and future priority topics. Will staff please present the report?
Yes, thank you. And we have a couple of slides here, but we'll keep it brief. Thank you. This item is on the agenda tonight with, as I mentioned earlier, we have a joint city and port committee meeting tomorrow here in council chambers. So it's really on the agenda here tonight to give the council an opportunity to provide some of the direction to the committee and some of the, and a little bit of the brainstorming of potential projects and programs that can be part of the Community Benefit Fund, which is expected to be one of the major topics at tomorrow's meeting. And so just as a reminder and as some background for anybody who doesn't know what the Community Benefit Fund, that's what the Community Benefit Fund is. It's that separate fund that's part of our agreement with the port that in addition to the revenue sharing, each year the port contributes $100,000 annually to a community benefit fund as long as their gross revenues exceed $13 million. There is a little bit of inflation, so it's grown to actually about $130,000 a year from the $100,000 that was originally contributed. So we expect it to be about $130,000 this year. And the agreement specifies that there's 4 categories of projects that can be funded. And the headings for those 4 categories are shoreline protection projects, community development related projects, opportunistic endeavors, and then number 4 is other projects agreed to by both parties. So it's pretty broad, as long as basically the city and the Board of Harbor Commissioners agree at the end of the day. And so tomorrow, we expect tomorrow to be sort of the kickoff meeting on this year's process to talk about the Community Benefit Fund moving forward. And so we can talk about, there's probably a couple different elements, and one would just be, we had talked a little bit about changing the process for the Community Benefit Fund, and that's something that the port has expressed some interest in talking about. So that's something that the council could provide some direction on. But I think primarily our expectation is that it's going to be an early brainstorming of projects. And so we wanted to get to provide a list of the projects that have been previously funded by the Community Benefit Fund, and then give the council an opportunity to identify any priorities or any new types of projects that would be interested at this point. And so the next 2 slides, this and the following, show the prior allocations to the Community Benefit Fund and the projects. We'll come back to these when we discuss them, as it's fairly lengthy. But I already talked about that. And so the recommendation for this item is for the council to provide any feedback on the Community Benefit Fund and projects that the council members would like to see this year. And then secondarily, to provide direction to the Joint City Port Committee representatives from the city regarding any future priority topics that the council wants to make sure that the city representatives pursue this year at the Joint City Port Committee. So those are the 2 items. I'll hand it back over, and then I'll just leave the project slides up. And there's 2, so we can go back and forth if people have questions. But that is the staff report.
Thank you, City Manager. And I'd like to reiterate, just for public information, because this seems to get lost in translation, this is port funds. This does not come from the city. We do not contribute any funds whatsoever to this Community Benefit Fund. It is primarily the port. So I think we should start off by discussing ideas to put forth. If any council member has any new ideas they'd like to present. So we'll start with Councilmember Martinez.
Did you just say just new ideas or any of these that we would want to continue?
Anything that you want to add? Or
Yeah, so when I was on the committee last year, one of the things that the committee had agreed upon was the scholarship, the $10,000 scholarship. I know it hasn't happened yet, and it's not one $10,000 scholarship. It was $10,000 for a scholarship ceremony, and I think we agreed on most of the money being for the scholarships, like $8,500, and then like $1,500 for like the dinner and the venue. I think the port said that they can get a really good deal on the museum, that they have a contract with the museum at the Channel Islands Harbor. So I think that they talked about hosting it there, and they thought $1,500 would be more enough to do the event, but then $8,500 would be for scholarships. And while we haven't seen the event, I think that would be something that would be nice to see continue. The other thing that we had agreed on was the city port community events at $16,350. Originally, those were brought up because the CEO of the port, Kristen Dekas, Miss Dekas, I had gone to her for some of the events from last year, such as last April we hosted a music and literature event, which the entire council participated, and that was funded through just the port, helping out. And so she had mentioned like, hey Bobby, how about we use the Community Benefit Fund to do some of these events, and that's how that money was allocated for those events. So maybe next year it would be nice to see something like a music and literature event. I know that this year it was agreed for two fun runs. Let's just call them fun runs. I know the first one was Run for Your Heart 5K. So I would like to see those continue, but I think everybody liked the 5K, and I think everybody liked the fun run, and I think everybody liked the music and literature event. And I think if the city and the port work together, they can be better events, because as you remember, I was the one that was kind of running around, running the show on those two events. And maybe I was out of place, doing that. But I really, really wanted to see these events in our community. And the only thing that was lacking was the funds. And now we have the funds for this year. And I think it'd be nice to continue to see those. My last idea would be maybe continuing art. I know I'm on the art mural committee with Councilmember Hernandez, and one of the things that we've talked is like we're doing a mural, and it's going to be a really nice mural on the library, but it would be nice to continue to see art grow throughout the city. And so those are the three things that I would want to continue to see would be the scholarships, the city and port events, so like a joint effort, and then some more art, and I think that would benefit everyone.
So I think before we voted individually on these as a council and approved them to move forward, or how did we do that before?
Once we got a final list, I think we voted for it.
Okay. And I think the scholarship is already funded, money is set aside for that, it just hasn't been, the process for that hasn't been
well, that's for this year, but aren't we talking about for next
So
year?
you want to do a second allocation of scholarship
All
money?
I'm asking for, and it doesn't have to be that amount, it could be less, or it could be more, but I would like to continue to see that. It'd be nice for our city to be known for like, hey, our port and our city work together and give scholarships to our youth, to the youth in our community. So I think it'd be nice.
So while we're looking at prior allocations, there are some items on here that have not, like you said, been implemented. It might not be necessary to allocate an additional 10,000 if the 10,000 for scholarship has not been used.
Well, that's supposed to happen this year. Like the logistics of it still haven't been figured out. I'm not on the committee anymore, so now it's up to the new committee members
to create the process
to create the process, and that's where we left off. And I said I'd be more than open to give feedback, but I have faith that our mayor and our mayor pro tem can make that happen this year.
Was that assigned to staff, or who was that assigned to?
No, that we haven't moved past the discussion and that the idea part. We haven't moved into the next phase of deciding between the port and the city how that's going to look. But that will be good to put forward.
Yeah, so great idea, I think. Scholarships are being accepted now. And if we're talking about we haven't even started yet, I think we might miss the window for scholarships. And are you talking about high school students?
Yeah, I was talking about high school students.
Yeah, so scholarships are being handed out everywhere now. Usually they select applications in April.
No, I know that, but I mean, I was a student not that long ago, and I know scholarships go all around. I know there's usually a cutoff in December, but it doesn't mean that we can't have a cutoff in, say, July. I mean, why would a student not want to continue to, like, if there's a scholarship opportunity, why wouldn't they want to apply for a scholarship opportunity, like, in July, in June, and sometime in the summer? So.
Okay. Councilmember Gama?
Yeah, I think we definitely need to follow through on that and any others that are languishing out there. The accounting got me a little confused. So let's just look at the top item, the most expensive item, $120,000, which was collected over 3 years. So in the next year, there isn't going to be a $40,000 allocation for the statue. Correct?
The next
Not unless,
process
not
is
unless
ours.
it's added to the proposed list.
Okay.
Well,
so
the next allocation is our deciding of a monument. That's the next phase. Since theirs is already done, we're up next.
Well, I would just want to get on record that I don't want to spend $120,000 on a statue. I think like scholarships, Real Guppies, Police Explorers, Boys and Girls Club, First Robotics. I already mentioned the scholarships, the Port Hueneme High School Booster Athletic Program. I think these are things that all of us could get behind. And I think in the past, we've talked about supporting the youth of our community because many youth in our community are underserved. And we just learned that there's a high number of kids that don't know how to swim. And we've provided a Learn to Swim program with conjunction with Hueneme High School and the Oxnard Union High School District. So I feel good about a lot of the items on this. I don't know what Hueneme Park sand enhancement means. Where did that $20,000 go?
Yeah, that was a project from 3 years ago, so I don't have all the detail on it. This is every allocation we've made in the last 3 years.
Okay, so there's $20,000 that hasn't been spent in the name of.
May or may not. I'm not.
There's
sure
no
at this
accounting
time.
on it.
Okay, so I think it would be really nice to see what we have for the next year, like, because this has already been spent. The $120,000, $50,000, it's already been spent.
But to go back on your comment about the public monument barred phase, the whole process, we agreed, council already approved with the port 4 phases. And they've already completed their first one. They have asked for, and then we asked for our own phase. And then there are 2 other phases that they're interested in. So if we do not allocate our decision on what we want to do for our phase, they will move forward on their 2 other phases, whichever one is they want to. So it's not going to stop the phases of monuments, just to let you know.
Well,
'Cause we already approved it.
can we rediscuss it, re-examine it? I mean, I don't know about how well this first phase is going.
Well, the first phase is done. There's no more, there's
It's-
no more money
no,
going into it.
Right,
So the
but
second phase, we agreed, was the city council doing a tribute in some way to Chumash.
okay,
And
so
we don't have to do a monument. We could do anything we want with it, but
sticking on first phase. So there's still there's no decision where the statue's going to go.
So the statue's been built for the first phase, but it has not been, a location has not been approved yet, but it's been built, and there's no additional funding anticipated for that statue at this time. Does that answer?
Kind of, yeah. And so again, I think we just need to see what we have available to spend if we funded all the obvious things, scholarship. I mean, I don't know of any council member that doesn't want to support police explorers. Anybody? So I think there's a number of things that we all agree on. And I think if we could just clear those out and then look at a number that's left over that we could get creative or new ideas for, or for phase 2.
well, that's what we're looking at now. Do you have any new ideas you'd like to add? In addition to what's here, if you want to reiterate,
Well, again, what I'm trying to get past is there's not going to be a $40,000 allocation for the barred phase. So maybe we should get this presented in a way that says this is how much money we have to allocate. I mean, like I said, there's a number of things here that I'm pretty sure that we'll continue to support.
agree on.
Can I ask that a couple of items remain on the list, and maybe that'll get us started?
Yes.
And then I don't know if there needs to be a vote between that. I'd like to.
Madam, sorry, Mayor Pro Tem, just before, I don't remember if we called public comments yet, but we did
Okay.
get a.
Yes, let's go to public
public
comments right
comment.
now. Are there any public comments for
We
this
have
item?
one public comment from Rich Rollins.
Thank you.
Good evening, City Council, Mayor, staff. I would like to provide some suggestions. I know we're all being creative tonight on possible uses for the upcoming Community Benefit Fund. Some of it has been mentioned earlier, but the port is a major financial engine, and it provides revenue and jobs and community projects throughout the county. The initial intent of this Community Benefit Fund was for the city and port to get together to finance projects focused on providing direct benefits to the residents of Port Hueneme. There are some great examples of how this has been accomplished. Some of the things have already been mentioned, but like Little League, the Beach Festival, the Real Guppies, Port Hueneme Museum. With a limited amount of money, $100,000, I think this council should look towards prioritizing on projects that specifically benefit the residents of Port Hueneme. The county provides a lot of different projects that benefit the county all overall, but $100,000 or now $130,000 is directly for the residents. I have a lot of suggestions. I put my creative mind to work. Some of these have been mentioned, and I will provide a list to the council when they're moving forward. High school scholarships for high school students. Additional funding for the Historical Museum. Picnic facilities at Bulker and Miranda Park. A demonstration water efficient landscaping to show our community how they can save water and still provide quality, attractive landscaping. Perhaps think about, we're talking about arts. In many communities, they have a portable stage that goes throughout the community and provides music and art, and it could be used for a variety of our special events. I've seen that work quite effective. On a art mural projects, some of people that I've talked to have thought about the ideas of perhaps decorating and providing murals for the beach lifeguard stands. There's also been thoughts about providing art money to do crosswalks within the community, art to make our community stand out. One of the more successful programs that we've had this year is making the community be able to use the Boys and Girls Club gym for various different activities. And I think that might be a thought that we could expand on that. Right now it's open 2 days a week, and it's available 7 days a week for various different community involvement. One of the things that they're struggling with right now is a tutorial program for the library. A lot of kids, need, especially in this community, need a special help for providing tutoring so that the kids can be successful in school. And finally, a little thing on that, I've gotten a lot of requests at Miranda Park for a tennis backboard. There's a lot of people who want to develop their skills, kids and stuff like that. I've talked to the coach and providing a backboard, which would be $5,000 to $10,000. That's something for you to consider. The cost of these projects may exceed what's available for this year, but I think they could be incrementally done throughout the next few years, and I would like you all to consider these projects. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments?
No more public comments.
Thank you.
I forgot to mention something. Thank you, Mr. Rollins, for regenerating some of my thoughts. So one of the things I think is very important is to support the youth of our community, but also if we could use, for example, pedestrian safety at the entrance to the port. It's something that I see every day, and I think maybe we could use community benefit to address the crosswalking and the safety for pedestrian safety in and around the port egress when you leave the port. I know that we're going to be looking at pedestrian safety across the board, but perhaps we could get creative and use a little bit of community benefit fund to benefit the community who walks to the beach.
Thank you. I know you're excited, but let me call on you so that I can make sure everybody gets a chance to talk as well. Councilmember Hernandez?
Thank you. Were you talking about me being excited or?
No.
Oh, okay. Okay. I am excited. The first thing I wanted to ask about is the process. The process has evolved over several years now, at least since I've been on the council. It's been a process of independent parties weighing in on what they would like on this list of proposed ideas. And I'm wondering if the City Port Committee has considered refining that process so that maybe there's and I don't want to complicate it, I don't want to burden staff with this thought, but the idea of an application process. So we're just not handpicking. We get the nonprofits out there to actually come to us and say, we'd like to be funded to do 1, 2, and 3.
So yes, so the port at a previous meeting did discuss, and they said they wanted to come up with a rebranding and a better way to go about this process. So that conversation has not happened, but that is something that was brought up and to be a future agenda item. Do we know if it's going to happen tomorrow?
So we tried to write the agenda broad enough tomorrow that it essentially, whatever direction we want to go on it, we should be able to go. If it's talking about the process and starting an application process, or if everybody has come together and already knows exactly what projects they are, then there's that possibility too. So that could be direction from the council, would be, wanting to see a more thorough application process.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can imagine it wouldn't be something that would happen maybe this year, but maybe leading into next year. So with that said, I'm glad to hear that. I know that this port actually does have a sponsorship application process that seems to work very well with them. So maybe there's something similar can be done for the Community Benefit Fund. As far as projects are concerned, I do want to suggest several projects that be added to the list. I definitely would like to see more public line item for public art. It could include another mural. It could be another type of public art piece. It could be the artistic crosswalk, which we've already been discussing. The other thing I'd like to add is the Audubon Society. We've funded them in previous years. I'd like to make sure that they're on the list for next year. I know they have a need. I was talking to Cynthia Hartley a couple of weekends ago, and I think it has to do with fencing. They were looking for some assistance with fencing around the snowy plover nesting area. Several years back, we also funded the Cat's Cradle to do trap and releasing of cats around the port. This was both a benefit to our residents and to the port itself. Cat's Cradle, I think, stopped doing it, but I believe there is either they started doing it again or there's another organization that does it. But I would like to see a line item for the trapping and releasing of feral cats, which is a public nuisance, and I think something that we can do something about using the community benefit funds. As far as event planning, if we have an idea for events, I'd like to see the money go toward our beach festival. I think the beach festival could probably use some additional funding. That would definitely be a joint project with the port and the city. Also, as far as we're doing a lot for youth, and I love the idea of doing things for youth, but I don't want to forget our seniors. We only have one program here in town for seniors, and that's the recreation class that Sharon Cloris does, and I'd like to see more programs done for seniors. The museum could also use some funding, I'm sure, as they're trying to upgrade and open up soon. I'm sure they could use some funding. I like the idea about the mobile stage. I just don't know where it could be stored and who would be responsible for putting that out. Of course, the library could always use some funding. I would be all for that, supporting that idea, and I think that concludes my list of suggestions.
Thank you. Before we move on, did Councilmember Gama and Martinez, were any items on the list currently did you want to keep on the list? Are there any specific?
That like to keep? Yeah, no, of course. Police Explorers, Real Guppies, Inlet Catch. I don't think it's on here, but I know we had supported the Hueneme Beach Festival in the past, but then
It's right there.
what the port also wants is also then to support the Banana Festival, which is obvious, which makes sense. But one of the things that I did forget to mention is, I don't know, maybe even like I like the idea of picnic tables, maybe some more bonfire pits. I've had people tell me like, hey, well, there's not enough bonfire pits. I know it happened to Councilmember Gama. He showed up a little too late for his birthday, and there was no more bonfire pits for him to enjoy his birthday.
We still had a fire.
You still had a fire, but not on the beach. And another idea that this was brought up by Mike Falcone. He's a resident here in Wainimi. He works with me at the school. He had talked about maybe having like a decorated entrance at front of the pier. You know, that's an idea, but I think something like that might be expensive. But I'm just throwing it out. I just thought I'd at least bring it up. But I would really push for like big city letters. You know, that's just my opinion. Like sign like marquee letters, and I think that would be great. And I obviously support the Boys and Girls Club, or even the opening up the gym, and the library. So I mean, I think if we could just give a little bit to each, it could $100,000 might not sound like a lot, and I think it's 130,000. But if you just put like 5,000 here, 5,000 there, 5,000, like we can do a lot.
Councilmember Gama?
I think the Learn to Swim program needs to be a part of that. And I know Councilmember Martinez wanted to say it, but
yes.
Any support for the youth of our community is money well spent. And I think we've seen the benefit. What's going on?
Mayor Pro Tem, do you have anything?
Yeah, I think everybody pretty much said most people. I'd like to see Real Guppy on there again. I see that on there. I'd like to continue the partnership for the Lego First support.
I don't think that's actually Lego First. I think it's just
Robotics.
That's what it's called, Lego First.
Is it? Okay, well, I marked it.
Let's see. Yeah, so I want to go back to the scholarships. So I want to make it really clear. I'm not against scholarships, but I am for being intentional in the things that you do. And so I just want us to make sure that we're doing that, being intentional. We're not just saying, hey, we're going to do scholarships and we're just going to
No.
money. So I just want us to be
Yeah.
intentional. I'm all for scholarships. I'm all for education, but just want us to just think through it and not just say we want to do it and let's increase it, double it, and we haven't come up with a plan yet.
I think we
So-
definitely need to create a process.
So that's all I'm asking the council for. And I do like the idea of the tennis wall for the tennis courts, so I'd like to see that in there. And another thing that I'd like to, and I don't know how to do it, but I'm just going to put it out in the air, is that, you know, we have Wainimi High School here in the city, and we talk about supporting Wainimi High School a lot. But we also have a lot of elementary schools, and I hardly ever hear us talk about those. So I want to talk a little bit more about the elementary schools as well.
Can I ask specifically? What do you mean, like elementary schools? Like, what do you want to do?
No, I'm just saying when we talk about supporting financially or programs, I don't see that we think about the elementary schools. So we went to a science fair recently to one of the local schools, right? And I know there's a reading that we do, but actually going in and, you know, providing some funding for some type of resource. Like I said, I'm not sure what it is, but what I'm saying is that I want to be inclusive and not just think about certain educational, organizations or facilities. I want to make sure we're thinking holistically about the things that we're doing for the students and the children in our city.
Okay. And I think a couple of these things can be removed. For instance, Wainimi Beach Park Bike Station can be removed. I think the VCLA Academy should be removed.
Those aren't necessarily proposed for this year. It's just the history of everything we've funded.
Yeah.
So
Wanna make
I've
sure.
started. I know it got confusing. So I started right now. Just anything that I heard mentioned, we put on the list, and we can start.
Okay.
You know, maybe with that, and then agree on which ones to remove.
Boys and Girls Club.
We're up to 16 or 17, which, just as a reminder, if it's $130,000, it means that's less than $10,000 each group. So
I also wanted to suggest that if we're not going to use the park and sand enhancement, I was told that it was supposed to replenish the sand around the playground. But I don't know if that's still necessary, considering the situation and status of the current.
It's a good question.
The playground. So if that's not going to be used for sand, let's throw it back into the pot. And anything else that hasn't been spent yet. I guess that's the only one that I see so far.
we'll double check
Yeah.
that between, so there's a process, right? And we all know that, but there's a process and it'll go to the joint committee and then come back. So when we come back, we'll come back with more information on if any of these are still pending. So.
Sure. Thank you.
Now, the second part of this is future agenda items for the Port City Committee. Does any council member have anything they'd like us to present, to discuss?
Yes, we made some news tonight. So the Community Benefit Fund has a COLA.
A CPI adjustment. And so that's why it's kind of gradually crept up to, I think last year was $127,000. So it's creeping up from the original $100,000.
Okay. In terms of items to discuss with the port, I think we need to start discussing revenue sharing agreements. I think we around the port, I've already mentioned that. I think we need to discuss sidewalks in and around the port. Just to give you an example where I think we missed an opportunity, both the port and the city. The port did a re-landscape plan and they installed a lot of rocks. And I saw a guy riding a skateboard the other day and he hit a rock and he fell down. And, you know, rocks don't go well with rollerblading or skateboarding and stuff like that. So I'm just hoping that we could have more engagement with the port, particularly when it concerns the area of Market and Surfside all the way down to the beach. I think we really need to start focusing on traffic safety and pedestrian safety. So I would like those two items to be on the agenda, but the agenda's already set, isn't it?
No, this is a future.
A future? Okay.
Yeah,
Thank
so
you.
these will be direction for the committee to work on in this coming year.
Councilmember Martinez, I'm going to go back to you. Do you have anything?
No, I think we've done a lot of improvements, and at least in terms of like our relationship and like our but can I go back and just mention, I don't know if everybody would be interested in that like sign at the pier. Like let's just say if the committee doesn't want it, that's fine, but I at least wanted to bring it up. You know, not Ventura. It was, I just looked it up. It was Santa Monica. You know, I think you guys know what sign I'm talking. You know,
It's like the Ventura one, kind of.
Oh, okay. So yeah, kind of like the Ventura. That's what Mike had mentioned to me, and so I don't. Again, you guys can discuss it, but that's one of the things I just kind of want to throw out there. I'm actually really happy with this list. I don't think we've ever worked this well as a council since I've been on here. I think a lot of the time we're like fighting and bickering and like deciding where the money's gonna go. We're doing a really good job, and I'm really happy with the way that we're going about this. And so overall, I see this as an improvement, not just here, but also when we go to the port. Right now, there isn't anything that I can think of, but I know that we'll like at a future time, if I come up with something, I'll let you know.
I think I did raise my hand. I think if we could like have two categories for discussion. Community Benefit Fund is a category in and of itself, and then mutual benefit items that we could work with the port to make our community more friendly for walkers and bikers and all that stuff. So in terms of I think traffic safety is something that we need to discuss. Pedestrian safety, I've already mentioned. The revenue sharing agreements moving forward. I think those are the top ones for me.
I've made note of them. Councilmember Hernandez?
Thank you, Mayor. I think this process is working because we've actually scheduled it to be discussed on the agenda. And thank you, Mayor, Councilman Martinez for saying that, because this points to the need to continue scheduling time on our city agenda before the next city port meeting so we can have these discussions. And one of the discussions I'd like to have for us before the next meeting, the next city port meeting, is a discussion on what we would like the mayor and Mayor Pro Tem to take with them to Washington, D.C. when they do the port trip. Because we didn't have an opportunity to weigh in on that, what some of our city issues were or are, and what we want advocated on our behalf when you go to D.C.
Yes, thank you. We did discuss that, and we definitely wanted to have a planning session because this is going to be a lot more about us and what we can get out of the DC trip. The first one was their being in support of the port and pushing the city as well, but we want to be a bigger presence in this next DC trip.
So, and I know that security for the port is an issue, and one of the things that came out of our DC trip was they didn't get funded by FEMA to get the security that they want, the security project funded that they wanted. And just so that everybody knows here, says what actually kind of hurt them was because we have a shared port between the Oxnard Harbor District and the Navy base. So I think when we do our advocacy, we have to be careful with using that as an advantage or a highlight of what makes us special, because it actually, in this case, worked against them, because the responsibility got laid on the Navy. Says, well, if you're partnering with the Navy should take care of your security. And so they lost out on the security grant.
So, if I could, I'm sorry, to go back to the trip, I think we need to continuously, annually, keep working to educate about the need for dredging and the moving of the sand to, combat sea level rise. But here, we seem to, and we're going to discuss it a little bit later, but dredging is always an issue, and it shouldn't be, but it is. And we're working through some issues right now, so maybe that could be start working today for 2 years out, because it does come quick. So I think dredging, joint partnership, addressing that for the future.
Okay, if nothing, Mayor Pro Tem, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, just one question. City manager, it says city marquee letters, and is that the same as pure signage, or is that different?
I had understood two different things, but it's up to
So
the
did I.
council. But yeah, one I think is the idea, like Puerto Vallarta had, of the block letters that would be somewhere along the walkway, I think,
Kinda
is how I had
artsy
understood it.
type.
And then the other is some sort of sign over the pier. So, but obviously it can be combined or.
Yeah, in terms of those marquee letters, maybe this would be a good selling point for the port. There can be some that say Port of Hueneme, so that there's some just for the port, and then there's some for the cities, just throwing it out. I'm sure they would like that. And it could be like on the side by the port,
So can we just add the 5K? We talked about it.
Oh, yeah, the
the
events.
The city events or the city port events. Yeah.
On Mayor Pro Tem's thought about reaching out to the elementary schools, maybe we could really push the Learn to Swim program, expand that, and really make it available, because it is super important to get as many kids able to swim, particularly we live near an ocean. So maybe we could expand that. And then also, I think we propose maybe in the next year where we have an application process where we could go out and advertise. I don't know. But I mean, we're pretty set in, look at our list right now. These are groups that we've supported in the past, we're going to continue to support, and I don't ever see that support waning. So maybe a process of opening it up to everybody might work against us, but it's something to consider.
Okay. I think we have it down pretty much, unless there's anything further.
We're good.
So, did you have anything? Okay.
I'm good.
So the
Thank you.
recommendation is to create a list of projects and programs recommended for funding for the Community Benefit Fund and to provide members of the Joint City Committee with direction regarding future priority topics, including the council's identified partnership goals.
Move to approve the recommendation list and the topics for discussion.
Second.
Yes, please.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. The final presentation item is the dredging project update. Mr. City Manager?
Thank you. And this is going to be very brief at this point because it's our intent is that we're trying to be sort of one step ahead and bring the item to the council to get the direction to continue to prioritize this as a project and then continue to work and advocate aggressively for the city. But just at a basic level, for anyone who's not familiar, our beach is dependent on a dredging project every a few years, and we lose our sand throughout the year, and the way the port and other items are configured, the sand isn't able to get back to our beach, so we have to dredge. And our goal with the county was to dredge about 2.2 million cubic yards biannually, so every 2 years. And over the past 3 dredging cycles, starting with the most recent in 2023, we were able to dredge 2.4 million, which was the first year we had exceeded that goal for quite a while. In 2021, we had dredged 1.9 million cubic yards, and in 2019, 1.6 million cubic yards. That followed a few years prior where we weren't able to dredge the sand as needed, and most people probably remember that was the year that the sand at the beach essentially was gone, and we had water right up to our retaining walls. And so it's an important project for the city. And one of the positives that I can report at this point is we've had some early meetings with the port, with the Channel Islands Harbor representatives, with the United States Navy, Beacon, and others involved, the Army Corps of Engineers, too, as an example. And the positive is everybody that we're talking to understands it's important, and for most of those agencies, it's equally important. For example, the port and the Navy also, these are critical projects for their benefit as well. So the reason why it's on why it was added to the agenda by the council at the prior meeting, but the reason it was added is because of sort of an initial report back from a couple of the agencies involved that the initial budget allocation that they expected to see, that it wasn't where they expected to see it. And so we've had a number of meetings. We've issued letters of support to our senator representative, to the county supervisor's office, to different representatives. And I think to boil down kind of the summary of what we're hearing talking to them is that it's just the process is happening a little bit differently this year. But all of those parties involved have told us that this is a priority for them. They've the fact that we came together with the Port, Beacon, and other groups, the Harbor and others, right away, and reached out to them as soon as we had seen that it looked different this year. We caught their attention that they understand the importance to us and they understand it's a priority, and we've got some commitment from some of those representatives to also put some effort into making sure that the project's going to happen the way we need it to happen. So at this time, there isn't any like immediate action. We're meeting with those groups. We've set up some more meetings. The county supervisor's office is actually going to host kind of a stakeholders meeting that we're going to participate in. Beacon's already scheduling their sand summit, which is another part of this process. So everybody's doing those things, and we're all making sure we're working together. And so those things are happening. But essentially, we wanted to give that status update and then just reaffirm with the council and kind of so everybody understands we're going to be in that process for the next few months, and we expect to spend some time doing some of those advocacy items and going into those meetings and representing the city. And so it's just kind of explaining that and getting the direction from the council to make this a priority over the next 6 to 12 months and moving forward.
Thank you.
So, thank you.
The council have any questions at this time?
I do.
Mr. Gama, I have ignored the last few times.
You
Please
asked us.
respect the process
I
and allow
did.
me to call on you, please. Thank you. Councilmember Martinez, do you have any questions? Councilmember
Questions?
Gama, do you have any questions?
Trying to remember it. So I think it's really important when we talk about advocacy to Washington. You know, every 2 years we have to go through this, it seems like. And I'd left 10 years ago when Surfside Drive was falling in the ocean and the pier was closed for 2 years. But it just drives me kind of nuts that 2 years ago we thought we finally got to the right people in Washington and that they understood how critical it is to replace the sand that disappears, and then here we are again struggling. So I just want to thank the city manager for getting on this, bringing all the parties together, and I think clearly we need to do more advocacy on our behalf because it's critically important to our community, the port, and the Navy.
Councilmember Hernandez?
Thank you for your report, Mr. City Manager.
Mayor Pro Tem. Do you have anything to?
I'm sorry, I just had a blank. We'll be responding to your report. No questions.
Madam Clerk,
Sorry.
do we have any public comments on this item?
No public comments, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. So there is no action to be done on this item. This was just to receive a report. So the report is received. Thank you, City Manager, for the update.
Thank you.
And now we'll move on to the City Manager comments and reports.
Thank you. And I have just a few things. One, and I know I probably confused people earlier by scheduling on the fly, but just a reminder that Thursday's a big day for us. We have at 10 a.m. the grocery outlet grand opening, where we'll be able to participate with the ribbon cutting, which we're excited about. And so that's going to happen Thursday at 10 a.m. And then at 3 p.m. With that adjustment, we will have our Arbor Day celebration here outside of City Hall. So we'll be planting our trees at that point. So just a reminder on those two. We also just wanted to thank everybody who came out for the Coffee with the City event a couple weeks ago now, which we had a good crowd. It was actually a lot more people than I expected. I was sitting out with one person, and I kind of was like, well, if we talk to one person today, I guess it's worth the effort. And then next thing I know, there was a lot of people, and I was behind on handing out the coffee tickets, so it got crowded quickly. But that was very interesting, and our hope is we plan to do a couple more, and we'll bring some different people. We were talking about bringing some of the officers that are involved with some of the different services we provide, and bringing like our public works team and some other people in. So we'll try to advertise those in the future with like who's going to be there, so that when people have questions about certain topics, they can come get information. So there's those, and then just future agenda items. So for the month of May, each of those meetings in May we expect to have a meeting where we don't have the full 5 council members because there's some travel going on. So a couple of the items that are really important, like the budget and our policy, reviewing our council policies. My recommendation is that we do that when we have all 5. So that's probably both of those would probably be that first meeting in June. So we're going to shift some things around to make sure we have everybody here for the most important topics. So right now for the May 6th agenda, we have a couple of items scheduled, and one is to discuss last year, the council asked for an opportunity to discuss a flag policy. And so we'll bring that at the next meeting. And then, let me see. We actually worked with the Citizens Advisory Committee to update our citywide legislative platform. So we'll bring that to that meeting as well. And then we'll have our presentation from our sales tax representatives to tell us what the budget sales taxes are looking like this coming year. So right now, that's the plan for May 6th. Like I said, just because a couple of those items, I think it's more important to have all 5 participate than to rush them. So those are the items planned for May 6th.
Any questions for the city manager? And yes, Councilmember.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. City Manager. I have one question about the Heroes and Heritage nominations for this year. When is that application due?
I don't know offhand, but Charles may know, and I think he's eagerly waiting to come up.
They're due by June. We just recently made a social media post announcing it, and we'll continue to do that a few more times. So,
okay, June.
Yeah. I'll have to double check.
Okay, that's
I think
all right.
It's
It's far
June
enough.
1.
It's far out enough
I think it's
that-
June 1, so I think
Okay,
we'll
great.
have about
Thank
6
you.
weeks for nominations.
Great, thanks.
Okay, we will now move on to council member reports and comments. I'll start with Councilmember Martinez.
Thank you, Mayor Perez. Sister City, we just had our meeting last week. It went well. We're still working on the bylaws. I don't think you guys want to know everything that went on, but we're still just trying to get our nonprofit going. Our next meeting's on May 1st. Reach is having a special meeting tomorrow at 3 p.m. We're still figuring out some stuff too. Water agency, lots of stuff going, but it might be a little bit boring, right, to mention some of the stuff. But what might be interesting, the mural's going well. I don't know if Councilmember Hernandez wants to say a little bit more. But yeah, I'm excited for the mural. I think it's gonna be really, really nice, and just I don't even know what it's gonna look like, but I know it's gonna be good. You know, that's all I know.
Thank you. Councilmember Gama.
Every Saturday, wind, rain, fog, we're doing our Wainimi Beach cleanup. We got the buckets, we got the sticks. So if you're looking to do some wellness for Wainimi Beach, come on down and join us. We meet at 8:30 a.m. at the Alaska 26 Memorial. My switch keeps going off.
Councilmember Hernandez.
Thank you, Mayor. This Thursday, I will be attending the the blue ribbon, the ribbon cutting for, I guess we're all getting punchy, for Grocery Outlet at 10 a.m. I'm going to have to break away from the 32nd Annual Water Symposium. I'll be attending also on Thursday to do that. It starts at 7 a.m. and ends at 1:30, and be representing the city at that symposium. And thank you for the complimentary admission to that. I'm glad we don't have to pay $300 for me to attend that.
That's 5 hours of talking about water.
I know, you don't like water. I like water. You don't have to worry about water anymore. Last week, I attended the SCAG, Southern California Association of Governments Transportation Committee, which I'm a member, and the 2 takeaways were, one is they are announcing the release of the California Active Transportation Program guidelines for 2025. That means there's grant money available. Unfortunately, grants are due April 30th, but there'll be another round of grants next year. And just to put your thinking caps on and to continue the conversations that we've had around some of these items, infrastructure projects can be funded. That's capital improvement projects, planning for bicycle, pedestrian, safe routes to school. If we want to get a plan done, we can apply for funds to have somebody come in and tell us how to have safe travel routes in our city. There's non-infrastructure projects that can be funded, infrastructure projects with non-infrastructure components, quick build projects like artistic sidewalks and other traffic calming measures. The other fun thing that I heard at this presentation is, how many of you remember the Jetsons? I know, okay, I know Rich did. Okay.
Yes.
We're dating ourselves, but you know, we might be able to see that in our lifetime. We heard a fascinating presentation about unmanned aerial vehicles that will transport people for short-term trips in Los Angeles. It's actually going to happen. We're working on it. This Southern California Association of Governments is actually working on all the things that have to be thought of in working with the FAA and implementing these unmanned vehicles that will transport both people and cargo. So I think that's to come. So we'll hear more about that as the committee work continues. And then the mural committee, we had a great couple of meetings actually, meeting with the artists top three artists who were selected to provide renderings of the vision that we provided to them. They're going to go back now and do several renditions of capturing, hopefully, the ideas that we provided to them through the committee and other members who participated in the process. So we'll look forward to having those come back, and then there'll be a selection process, and everybody will get to see and kind of weigh in on the final product. So we're excited about that. And I think that's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Mayor. Have a lot of things going on with the committees that I participate in. The Air Pollution Control Board just approved Councilmember Gama's onto the APCD Advisory Committee, and so congratulations for that. There was also a hearing to approve the 2023 annual report for air toxins. There was about 11 pages of locations throughout Ventura County. The city of Port Hueneme only had 4. Naval Base Ventura County, the Air National Guard, Pac Foundries, and USA Gasoline. And they were all under the levels required to be reported. So that's good news. So we should be getting, the city should be getting that report. For Gold Coast Transit, the board just approved a new fare structure, which is the first one since 2011. So they've been the same prices since 2011. So we just approved the new structure. And GCTD wants everyone, this is a notice that they would like everyone to continue to keep in mind whenever you think about planning any kind of event or any kind of work in your cities, to please keep transit in mind. And I know we'll be having some work done here on Ventura Road, and we do want to make sure that we communicate with the transit folks so they know, so they can keep on time with their bus routes and all the other things that they have to do. The governance, Museum Governance Committee will be meeting on this Friday. We are working continuously trying to get ourselves to the point so we can reopen the museum. So work is continuing, and we, again, will be meeting on this Friday to discuss a little more. For VCTC, a couple of announcements. VCTC, which is the Ventura County Transit Commission, they launched the emergency shuttle service between Santa Paula and Ojai due to the closure of Highway 150. And so some of the things that were happening, you had people in Santa Paula that would go 15 minutes, the 150 to take their kids to drop off at school. And what was happening, they were having to drive an hour around each way because of the closure of the 150. So VCTC launched the emergency shuttle, and they'll be doing that until they come up with some resolution for the closure of 150. And finally, just want to share that April the 22nd, Monday, is Earth Day. And in celebration of Earth Day, the Ventura County Transit will be giving free bus rides, and there'll also be free Metrolink rides. And so that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. I attended my committee meetings. There's nothing to really report out relevant to the city of Port Hueneme. But I do want to say congratulations to Port Hueneme PD Explorer Sergeant Tiffany Zavala for being named Explorer of the Year. So they had that ceremony, and it was a very nice ceremony, and apologize if anyone did not get the notification for that. I don't think it went out. But congratulations to her. It was well-deserved. She's a great addition to the Explorers and puts in a lot of hours, and she's going to be a great police officer one day. Also, just wanted to make a little note of I'm working on creating a Hueneme Lions Club charter, which is independent of any other, and it's a community service organization to help out with volunteerism, support community events, and to just provide community service in any area that's needed in the city. If anyone is interested in getting involved in that or wants to know what the Lions Club does, who we are, and how they can help, get in touch with me, and I'll let you know what that means. It's very little effort on your part. Just have a heart for community, have a heart for volunteerism, and want to help make a difference in your city. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Mayor. I knew I forgot something. I saw Tom Fiala sitting out here in the audience, and I just wanted to congratulate him on being appointed commander for our local VFW. And I'm surprised to see you here because I thought you were celebrating your anniversary, but I want to also say congratulations on your marriage, your anniversary with a marriage to Marcy. Again, thank you and congratulations, and keep up the good work.
Next, we'll move on to requests for future agenda items. I'd like to remind council members that all requested items will require a motion, a second, and a majority vote per adopted council policies to be placed on a future agenda. Do any council members have any agenda items?
No.
Councilmember Gama? Councilmember Hernandez? Mayor Pro Tem? All right, no future agenda items. You guys are off the hook. I want to thank everyone for attending tonight's meeting, and I would like to adjourn this meeting at 8:24. We're getting there.